Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's iWoman Report. I'm Kathleen Trigg-Jones. Last week was so exciting and inspiring. I had the honor of attending all of the events leading up to the unveiling of the Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune statue at the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. Her actions are credited with giving birth to the civil rights movement. Plus, while I was in D.C., I met a group of women who are so passionate about gun reform that they traveled all the way across the country to Washington to march and protest gun laws just days after their organization was founded, and they are already several thousand people strong. I always say, it just takes one. We're going to talk about a little more on that later, but right now, I want to congratulate some amazingly talented women on their groundbreaking Emmy nominations. That's right, we are easing into award season, and there are a couple of trailblazers that have been nominated this year that we have to give a shout out to. Zendaya is outstanding as Rue in the HBO Max series Euphoria. She's made history as the youngest woman ever to be nominated, with a producer credit as well, at just 25 years old. And it doesn't stop there. She's also the youngest two-time leading actress ever nominated. In addition to her record-breaking nods, she's also nominated for her work on 2 original songs that were featured in the show. This also makes her the first Black woman to be nominated in the acting and songwriting categories in the same year. All right, Zendaya, do your thing. Also, she's not the only superstar on the ballot this year, though. Quinta Brunson, creator of the breakout hit Abbott Elementary, made comedy history. She's nominated for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series, as well as for writing the pilot. The show itself scored 7 nominations total, including Best Comedy Series.
Abbott Elementary was one of the huge breakout success stories of this past year. And the fact that it's a broadcast show on ABC just makes it sweeter. It's sort of the little show that's keeping broadcast going these days, at least now at the Emmys.
Times are changing. Quinta is the youngest Black woman to ever be nominated in the comedy acting category and the only Black woman to ever receive 3 nominations in the comedy category in the same year. All I can say is, do your thing, ladies. Wow. The power of women. What they can achieve is incredible. And I'm just so happy that these young women are being recognized. Congratulations again, Zendaya and Quinta, and all of the rest of the nominations this year. All right, as I said earlier, I got an opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. this past week to see the unveiling of a brand new statue in Statuary Hall in the Capitol. A powerful moment by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi celebrating the life and legacy of Mary McLeod Bethune, who advised not 1, but 5 U.S. presidents.
It's a privilege for all of us to pay tribute to Mary McLeod Bethune, an unyielding force for racial justice, a pioneering voice for gender equity at that time, imagine, and a devoted advocate for education.
Dr. McLeod Bethune was a fierce activist for Black people, and in particular Black women's rights. The statue honors her many accomplishments and great leadership. She's wearing a cap and a gown to symbolize her commitment to education, and she's holding a black rose, which represents her belief in interracial, interreligious, and international brotherhood. In 1904, she opened the Daytona Beach Literary and Industrial School for training Negro girls, which, you guessed it, later became the Bethune-Cookman College in 1929. She was dedicated to ensuring that Black people had the freedom and the right to an education. I have to say, I'm really humbled the more I learn about her. Dr. McLeod Bethune has a lasting impact on minority access to education. She saw teaching as a way to fight against systemic racism, which unfortunately is, of course, something that we're still struggling with today here in 2022. But I'm also really excited to announce that I've been asked by the Bethune family to produce and direct the Mary McLeod Bethune documentary from the family's perspective, along with my producing partner, Kevin Brewer, and our incredible team of creatives. So here's some pictures from the reception with her family in honor. This is her granddaughter, Dr. Bethune, and other family members. I'm just beyond humbled just to be a part of celebrating this trailblazer's life and legacy. I mean, she is really one of my true sheroes. So to get to this point where I can actually be a part of her story is incredible. Not only because she is an honorary member of my sorority, Delta Sigma Theta sorority, which of course I've got to give a shout out to, and we all love it so much, stands for community service, but she's also just a trailblazer that set the stage for so many women, including me, to believe that we can and do anything. I'll have more on that later. But right now, I want to talk about how we can ensure access to secondary and post-secondary education and make sure that it's available to all. So let's introduce Marie Bigham. She's the founder of the Accept group, where she and her colleagues work to make sure that the college admissions process is more equitable and anti-racist. Thank you so much for joining me today, Marie. Here to talk about equality in education and how we can ensure that equity is available for secondary and post-secondary education is Marie Bigham. She's the founder of Accept, an advocacy group that works directly with universities and colleges to help them enhance the efforts to make sure that there is diversity and inclusion at the collegiate level. Thank you so much, Marie, for joining us.
Thank you for having me today. I'm honored to be here.
We're honored to have you. You know, I actually want to start out, just because we're coming off of such an amazing, powerful week of watching the unveiling of the Mary McLeod Bethune statue in the U.S. Capitol, just history in the making for so many reasons. But you started Accept in order to really carry the legacy of people like Mary McLeod Bethune, who founded a university on a trash dump, mind you, to make sure that young women, young African-American women, had an opportunity to be educated. So, you know, thank you again for joining us. And does that play a part in why you founded Accept?
Oh gosh, absolutely. And they even have my name in the same paragraph as Mary Bethune is amazing. And I'm so honored that you would even consider that. But it's absolutely right. Like, she founded that university because she didn't have choices. HBCUs were founded because Black people were systemically kept out of institutions. And I think part of the reason that I find this work of ensuring that people have access to higher education, and particularly through the lens of equity, I think part of the reason this is so important to me is the awareness and the acknowledgement that those institutions were built specifically to keep people like me and you out. And we have to acknowledge that not only are we fighting current trends, current politics, we're fighting the very foundation of higher education in this country. And so, yeah, it's a worthwhile fight. It's an important one. And I'm honored to be able to do this every day.
Tell me about Accept. How long has it been in existence, and what was the real catalyst for choosing that name?
Accept was started 6 years ago, July 8th, and it was because of a shooting in Dallas. And there was yet another shooting, except this one happened at a community college, which was our space. This is my professional space, and there were people who weren't going to have access to education who needed the most because of this. So angry in the middle of the night, I started a Facebook group that had a lot of obscenities in the name, to be honest with you, thinking it would be 40 or 50 friends in this little corner of the internet. And 6 years later, we're a nonprofit with over 15,000 supporters across all platforms and making real things happen. But it was, to me, that moment in the middle of the night of just feeling real anxiety and the sense of futility that no matter what I did, things weren't going to change, but maybe something could.
The fact that our system just seems, aside from the huge disparity in race and access, there's also this cost barrier that it feels like it's like, okay, we're going to give you something, we're going to let you in, but we're going to make it almost impossible for you to afford it.
But the truth is, and this just makes sense from a business perspective, when colleges are looking at applicants, the applicant's ability to pay is a factor in this process. Mm-hmm. And so not only is the cost high, not only is it very difficult to figure out the process of getting money, but the system is rigged so that people who can pay more have more opportunities and more doors open to them. So it's a huge piece of inequity.
How does Accept make a difference?
We are writing for the first time an amicus brief, a friend of the court brief to the Supreme Court in defense of affirmative action and how Harvard and UNC Chapel Hill have attacked this. And to be able to go out publicly to stake our claim and say, as professionals, Here's how this works. Here's how this works within the framework of the Constitution and settled law. And here's how we can do better.
Listen, it was a pleasure to have you come on the iWoman Report. I love what you stand for. Keep in touch with us if there's anything that we can do in our community to support you. We love supporting other female founders who are doing amazing things to make a difference in the community. So, Marie Bigham, thank you again. Tell everyone how they can find you.
You can find Accept all over social media. Our website is acceptgroup.org. You can find Accept on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, similar names. But check out Accept and see what we're doing.
Well, take care, and we'll be in touch. Thanks again, Marie.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. Thank you again, Marie. And don't forget, you can watch the entire interview with Marie Bigham on iWoman.tv. As she said, the increased cost of getting a college degree is one of the key reasons that many students don't go to college or finish college. Right now, women are attending college at higher rates than men. However, once they graduate, women are entering a workforce that values them less and doesn't pay them fairly, and that inequality increases with each intersectional identity. How can we ensure students not only get into college fairly, but also have the resources available afterwards to earn a decent living? This brings me to my question of the day. Should all student loans be forgiven? Right now, I feel like the government is sort of teasing us with student loan forgiveness. Even if they just forgave interest on loans, that would be a huge help, right? And I'm also just curious to know how many of you are still struggling to pay back student loans years after graduating from college. What's the best solution to making education affordable for all? Head over to our Instagram at iWomanTV to take our poll and keep this conversation going. The student loan freeze, which was first enacted during the pandemic in March of 2020, is set to end on August 31st of this year. It was extended a couple of times, first by Donald Trump, who extended it twice, and then Biden, who has also extended it twice. And some experts are predicting that it will be extended again due to the midterm elections in November.
The proposal would expand protection for defrauded borrowers, which means students who attended for-profit schools that lied or took advantage of them could be considered for debt cancellation as a group. These changes could impact as many as 40 million Americans.
Hopefully we will get an update on those student loan repayments soon because, of course, September 1st is going to come quicker than we think. And I have a daughter that's entering college this fall, my youngest of 4. And so, we need to work on this student loan forgiveness. All right, well, moving on, while I was at the Capitol to honor Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, there were so many people there protesting and fighting for causes they deeply believe in. I got a chance to talk with some women who came all the way to the nation's capital from Highland Park, Illinois, to protest assault rifles. Highland Park, you will remember, experienced that horrifying 4th of July parade mass shooting that left several people dead and dozens injured. The women are part of a group called March 4th, which was started by Kitty Brantner. She started the group just 2 days after the shooting and already has over 16,000 followers on Instagram. The March 4th group's first march was Wednesday, July 13th, which involved hundreds of people traveling to Washington to protest the sale of assault rifles. They also had some of the family members present from the Uvalde mass shooting in Texas. Here's what these women had to say about their experience and why they're so passionate about gun reform.
Tell me why you all have assembled here outside the Capitol today.
There's a few reasons. My uncle was murdered last year due to gun violence, and this year, July 4th, at our Independence Parade in Highland Park, my community was gunned down by a 21-year-old man that had access to an assault rifle and several high-capacity magazines.
We had gone out and put out our parade chairs, blankets the night before the parade, and we were on our way to get coffee and then go to our parade and heard news of the shooting. We received texts on it. Family members, close family members, had been running from the parade. It was terrifying.
You lived it. Your family lived through it. Can you just tell me what was the real life version of what you went through?
I live a mile away, and I was in my yard with my 6-year-old and 2-year-old, and we heard the sirens, and they said, they wanted to go see the fire trucks. And I said, it'll only take a minute, I'm going to throw them in the car, and that's when we started getting phone calls saying that there was a mass shooter and to stay away from downtown. It would have taken me 30 seconds to drive there. I could tell you I got firsthand accounts from parents from my son's kindergarten class of their children screaming and not understanding what's going on. Mommy, what's happening? Mommy, what's happening? Mommy, screaming. I'll never get that out of my head. One of my good friends, her daughter is 7 years old, and when the shooting started, everybody assumed it was fireworks because it's a 4th of July parade. And once people kind of grasped what was happening, they were still just too shocked to move in a lot of cases. And her 7-year-old grabbed her hand and said, Mom, I know what to do. I practiced this in school. Okay? Tell me a world where that is okay. Where our kids are being taught how to avoid a shooter rather than just banning the weapon that's killing them. It is not fair. It's not right. And I don't want to live in a country where that's okay.
It's got to stop. It's happening every week. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. That area, there's shootings every single day, every single weekend. You know, a lot of people have moved up to the area that we moved because it's relatively safe. There is nowhere in the country that's safe anymore. I'm afraid to go to the downtown area in Chicago. I'm afraid for my kids to go into the downtown area of Chicago. I also teach at the University of Illinois, and I've worked with so many different students over my career, and this is so scary that we have to worry about being in a public setting. I was worried to go to my farmer's market a week ago.
What purpose would there ever be to have one of these guns on the streets?
I don't think there is a purpose, and I think that's why this group, March 4th, is trying to target, really the banning of these assault weapons because there is no purpose for them. And not to throw in another thing, but behavioral health is a huge issue that ties into all of this. And I know we've done some strengthening of the laws regarding behavioral health in the last 2 weeks in terms of gun violence, but we need to go ahead and also increase support towards behavioral health, ban purchasing of guns for individuals who have behavioral health issues and for individuals under the age of 21.
I think it's really important to not only talk about the 7 people that were killed, but also the 30+ people that were shot in a matter of minutes. There is no reason that any citizen should have a weapon of war. There's just no reason for it. And we're here to fight that and make sure this never happens to another community, another family.
When you have different communities that actually go and they file class action lawsuits against the gun manufacturers, like the group did back in Sandy Hook, then we start seeing change happening. So you really have to go up against the companies who are doing this and funding this.
I feel a tremendous amount of guilt because we have been there. We've been there every year. We've lived in Highland Park for 8 years. My husband grew up there, but that's where we picked to raise our kids because it's a safe neighborhood. And you keep hearing that over and over again. It could never happen here. It could never happen here. But I can assure you that it can happen anywhere. And unless something is done, it will keep happening. And that's what keeps me up at night. And that's why I'm really here.
My sign here is, when I choose to have babies, I want to keep them safe. So I'm also very pro-choice, as well as, wanting to ban semi-assault weapons. And as a female in this country, in the most recent year, I really felt demoralized. I felt like we're being held back and held down. And I feel like this is a time that we have to bring the early 70s, late 60s back and step forward as women.
I was so impressed by these ladies' actions, the thought that they saw something and decided to take action, traveling all the way from Illinois to Washington, D.C., on a moment's notice, really, just to try to make a difference. And I learned, my producer and I, Janice, that were there, we learned from them that they actually paid for some of those Uvalde family members to come there because they thought it was important for them to be there at the U.S. Capitol protesting for gun reform. And you saw one of the mothers, she was so emotional because, as she shared, but she has a young child and she goes to that parade every single year and only didn't go this year and really felt like she could have been there. Any other time she would have been there. And I think you get a little bit of survivor's remorse. And sometimes that's what inspires people to take action. So anyway, it takes one, like I said, someone just starting something, and then that snowballs into bigger change. And that is how change is made. And that brings me to my thought of the day. Almost every movement begins with one person who is courageous enough to risk everything they have, put their entire life on hold, and in many cases risk their safety to stand up for what they believe in. Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune did not have access to the internet, she didn't have money, or any of the modern technology that we have today. She was the daughter of slaves, but none of that stopped her from fighting for the right for Black people to receive an equal education. Can you imagine the insults and the death threats that she received? Yet she refused to give up. How does a Black woman during those times go on to become an advisor to 5 U.S. presidents, start a college, found one of the oldest Black women's political groups still going strong today, the National Council of Negro Women? Her actions laid the foundation for the modern civil rights movement. But a movement cannot find success alone. It takes believing in what you believe in so much that others can't help but join your fight. And that's the power that she yielded. You know what I'm most impressed by, though, is the relationship that I've since learned that she had with President Roosevelt. They had a special bond. They were friends. But more importantly, he respected her. He listened to her. He enacted legislation because of her. Eleanor Roosevelt was also one of her biggest supporters and best friends. But the First Lady also received many death threats because of that close bond. What are you willing to fight for? And who are you willing to stand up for? Isn't it fitting that her statue replaces the statue of a Confederate general, Edmund Kirby Smith, and stands next to Rosa Parks' statue? Access to education is a fundamental right everyone should have, and Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune's faith and belief that learning and teaching were critical to ending racism has never been more apparent. If we don't learn and grow from our past, we cannot implement change, and without change, we will find ourselves in a place where history continues to repeat itself. I want to leave you with a quote by Dr. Bethune, who once said, "Without faith, nothing is possible. With faith, nothing is impossible." That's going to do it for this week's iWoman Report. As always, everyone, please stay healthy, stay happy, and stay safe.